Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Steffi and I am one of the co-administrators for the Ankylosing Spondylitis project. I apologise, this video was meant to come out a long time ago. It's something that I've been planning to do for a while, but I'm actually 13 weeks pregnant, so it's the first couple of weeks of pregnancy are very unpredictable. And it's not something you can really plan. You don't know how you're going to feel from one day to the next. So again, I apologise that this is so late. I'd love to thank Vicky, our other co-administrator, for holding down the fort while myself and my wife kind of enjoyed, I don't know if enjoyed is the right word, but enjoyed the last, well, we've known I was pregnant for the last 9 weeks. So yeah, thank you Vicky, you're a star, we love you. I really want to focus this video on pregnancy in AS, fertility with AS. It's something that's been very near and dear to my heart. It's something that has affected me, has affected my life. And it's something that I don't think is discussed a lot. As a lot of women will tell you who have AS is extremely underdiagnosed in women. It was always thought of as the young man's disease. That's not true. That's been proven that it's not true. The exact figures aren't known. At one stage I think it was saying it was 1 woman to every 10 men. It's now gone down, I think, to 1 woman to every 2 men. But again, the statistics cannot tell you for definite how many women have AS, as we are definitely later diagnosed than men, with chronic, with a lot of problems because of that. The longer you're undiagnosed, the longer you go untreated, the longer you're treated for things that maybe you don't have. I know definitely myself, I was diagnosed with things I didn't have. I took medication for things that I didn't have. I know that's been the case for quite a lot of people I've talked to. So yeah, it's hard. AS is a terrible disease, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. But being undiagnosed, especially for the length of time it takes to be diagnosed with AS, is very tough. Generally, the onset of ankylosing spondylitis is anywhere from mid-teens to mid-20s, which, generally every woman's different, but mid-20s to mid-30s is probably when the majority of women think about starting to have children. So you've got your onset of symptoms just when that's starting. Studies have shown that the incidence of infertility is far greater with women with inflammatory diseases such as AS, and that in general women with inflammatory diseases don't have children compared to the general population. That they have less children compared to the general population. For those of you watching this that are thinking of having a family, does that mean that you will have infertility? Not necessarily. It's something that affects some women, and there are women with AS that have their own football team worth of kids. It's nothing that you can kind of say will or won't affect you, but I think it's important to know that it can affect you. It's important to know that it is a factor when thinking about starting a family, and it is a factor when you're trying and maybe it's not going as quickly as you thought it would. Just to put it out there, that in a perfectly healthy couple with no fertility problems, it can take up to a year to get pregnant. So I know a lot of people, certainly myself, I went into it, I felt with my eyes open when we started trying, but you always get those, oh well, this person got pregnant without trying, or that person got pregnant within the first 2 months. And yes, you can. Of course you can get pregnant without trying. Of course you can get pregnant in the first couple of months. But don't expect it. Would probably be one of the biggest bits of advice I can give people, is don't expect that it's going to happen straight away. Because it doesn't always. I was trying for my baby for 20 months. We got pregnant 20 months after starting to try. Literally 2 years ago now, we started to try. And it's a long journey. It's a tough journey. For me, struggling with infertility was probably harder for me than my AS. Because I had my AS. I knew I had something wrong with me even before I was diagnosed. I knew it wasn't... You kind of start to wonder if it's in your head, but I always had a very supportive partner and everyone always believed me. I never had any sort of problems with people not believing that I had an issue. I think I had problems with people not knowing how significant the issue was, but I knew something was there. Whereas with infertility, you can't guarantee anything. You can't guarantee that you're going to get pregnant. And it's hard. It's something that I hope no woman ever has to go through, but if you do, make sure you've got a support network there, because you are going to need them. And even if you don't suffer from infertility, even if you're just try and get your support network together, because it is a tough time and it is important to talk about it. But luckily, I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Like I said, I think it's important to put it out there for women with AS that you might have trouble, but you might not. And I didn't take medication. I stopped taking medication as soon as we started trying, which was a personal decision for me. It might not work for everyone. I would strongly suggest, before you start trying, to go to your GP, your rheumatologist, whoever it is you go to, discuss what medications are safe for you to take during pregnancy, and maybe swap out any medications that aren't safe. I know that when I went to my pain management doctor, a lot of the medications that I was on, he was not happy with me being on for 2 weeks prior to me ovulating. Any of you that know the general woman's cycle, that basically draws you out. That basically says you can't take it all month, unless you plan on not, trying to conceive that month. So there isn't a lot of medication options. I was lucky in that I managed to cope fairly well, not on any medication. Actually, I managed to cope very well without any medication. I was very lucky. I never really had any significant issues. I went through one flare while we were trying to conceive, and I had to take medication for that. And other than that, I was okay. It's a huge consideration, I know, for a lot of people, myself included. When you're on medication, the thought of coming off of it is absolutely terrifying, because you use your medication to get through your day. There are, a majority of us take medication, and it's a hard thing to try and get your head around not taking them, which is why I'm glad I started. Well, I came off everything the month we started trying to conceive, and it was the best decision I ever made. I know that I can cope without medication, and especially during pregnancy, there's not a lot of options. So yeah, I was happy that I did that. But discuss it with your doctor. Definitely discuss it before you start trying, and at least you know your options. You know what's available to you. For actual pregnancy, my AS has greatly improved since I got pregnant. My pain levels are very little, virtually none. I would go as far as to say virtually none. I still get the odd twinge in my left sacroiliac joint, which is the joint that was first affected by AS. But other than that, no, I've been very, very lucky. The research shows that a third of women get better, a third of women stay the same, and a third of the women get worse while pregnant with AS. So thankfully I seem to be in the third that has got better. The one thing that could be attributed to the AS, but it could also be attributed to a normal pregnancy, is I'm extremely tired. It's something I've always suffered with AS. I've always had a problem with fatigue and trying to manage my fatigue while also living a life. And that seems to, I haven't quite got the balance right now I'm pregnant. I find I'm getting tired a lot. I can't do as much as I used to be able to do. But that being said, I haven't stopped doing things. I know now that I need to take a break when I need to take a break. So the other thing that has come up so far with my AS, now I've seen my rheumatologist since I've got pregnant, and I've had an appointment with my obstetric team, and I've discussed my AS with both of them. The one thing that my obstetric team was extremely concerned about was me having an epidural during labour. I haven't had any imaging of my spine for 3.5 years, I'd say now. So they were extremely concerned, obviously, to see if there was any damage. We discussed the options. My options basically were I could have an MRI of my spine, which they weren't particularly happy about, and neither was I, because of the high amount of radiation that the baby would get from the MRI. Or my other option is that an epidural is off the table. I didn't need to think about it very long. For me, I didn't feel like I would be able to subject my baby to that amount of radiation. It wasn't something I felt comfortable with. It wasn't something that sat right with me. So I made the decision, along with my wife. You know, we like I said, I don't think it needed much discussion from either of us, but we decided that the MRI wasn't an option. So for me, epidural isn't an option. Unfortunately, it means that in the case of me needing a cesarean section, I'm going to have to put under general anaesthetic, and I won't see my baby being born. But for me, that was a small price to pay for not having the MRI. Obviously, if I needed an MRI for something acute and something that was kind of more life-threatening, I would have it done. But I didn't feel it was worth the risk. Other than that, my rheumatology team seems quite happy with me. They are not going to see me now until baby's born, although I can ring them if I need them. I know that when I went to my OBS team, they were saying that I would probably have to discuss, when I go to my antenatal classes, kind of positions in pregnancy and things like that, or positions in labour, which I'm very interested in anyway. I trained as a nurse, and it was something I was interested in at the time, was, you know, looking at different positions in labour and how it can help. So it's something that I'm definitely going to be doing a lot of research on, just to make sure that I can stay comfortable during labour, as comfortable as you can be. I'm probably going into this very green, so I'm sure a lot of you that have kids that are watching this are probably rolling your eyes at me at the moment, thinking, you know, this girl doesn't know what she's talking about. But I will be trying to look at things that will help me during labour, especially seeing as I won't be able to have an epidural. A wonderful friend of mine who is studying midwifery at the moment suggested hypnobirthing, so I'm going to look into that as well. But yeah, from an AS perspective, I am HLA B27 negative, so that's not something that we need to worry about too much. From what my rheumatologist told me, my baby has the same risk of getting AS as anyone else. It doesn't matter that I have AS. I won't pass it on to my child, which was a bit of a relief. But yeah, so other than that, there's not a lot going on between the AS and my pregnancy. I've been having pretty severe heartburn, but I don't think that's an AS thing. I think that's just a pregnancy thing. Again, I had, from week 4 to week 6, I felt great. I could eat what I wanted, I could drink what I wanted. You know, I was kind of naively going, oh, this is great, this is wonderful. From week 6 to week 12, the morning sickness hit pretty hard. I became very... my relationship with my toilet was a little bit more personal at the end of it. Let's put it that way. It was slightly less fun than the first 2 weeks, but do you know what? It's worth it. It's not. I haven't had severe morning sickness or anything like that. It was just one of those annoying things that I think some women go through and some women don't. my mother was lucky enough that she never had morning sickness, and I kind of naively assumed that I wouldn't either, but that's not what happened. But other than that, no, I've been keeping fairly well during my pregnancy. Excuse me, I haven't been exercising as much as I maybe would have wanted to, but that's certainly something I'm going to work on, and I want to work on. I know that exercise during pregnancy can be a huge benefit. So yeah, it's pregnancy, I think, with AS can make pregnancy more difficult. I haven't personally experienced that, but it's an extra thing to worry about. It's an extra thing to research. It's an extra thing to consider if you are thinking of having a family. So, if you are thinking of it, do your research. We've done an article on women and AS, which briefly touched on AS and pregnancy. I know in the first 6 months, something like 90% of women with AS flare. So, the first 6 months postpartum, sorry. So that can make things a little bit more difficult, looking after baby and things like that. So we will see what happens. I will probably do an update further on in my pregnancy to say how things are going. We had a scan just over a week ago, about a week and a half ago, and everything's looking great so far. The baby's heartbeat's great. It's a real little wiggler, so we're saying it's a Michael Flatley doing its Irish dancing. But yeah, everything's going great, and I will update you soon. If you could come over to the Ankylosing Spondylitis Project Facebook page and give us a like. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr, and we have our own YouTube channel as well. So if you could check all those out and check out our other stuff, that would be great. Thanks for listening.